Okay, we'll just give folks a minute here to join us. See how many people we can get in the room. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us this evening for our very awesome panel, Navigating Your Identity in a Post-Secondary World. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be part of the LGBTQ plus community, things to consider when you're applying to your post-secondary institutions or considering where you're going. We're going to hear from Lindsay, who's going to share her experience. And feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A box as we go along, and we will try our best to answer those. So Lindsay's going to introduce herself, and then we'll see where the next 45 minutes take us.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. So yeah, I'm Lindsay. I'm born and raised in Stittsville, went to high school at Sacred Heart High School, graduated. Jess and I were just figuring out when I graduated. It was about 12 years ago. And out of high school, I was on a university pathway at the time. I was enrolled in university courses and doing well in those. So university seemed like the path to go for me at that point. So um, shopped around at some universities. I was also playing basketball at the time too. So basketball scholarship kind of came into play in my decision to go forward at Carleton University. I was only there for a year and realized that university might not be the best fit for me. So from there, I actually transferred over to Algonquin College into a different program. So in high school, I was very business oriented. I liked all the business courses. I really liked my marketing course that I took in high school. But I figured at the time I thought there would be no work in marketing. So I figured I'd go towards more of an accounting route in university. So I went to the Sprott School of Business at Carleton, which a really great program if you are looking at it. Was not a fit for me. So exiting university after my first year, I was looking for something that piqued my interest and excited me. And at that point, I really liked just doing stuff on my computer at the time. So I took some sort of like basic courses online about like HTML, CSS, marketing, branding, design, and that led me to apply to the Algonquin College Interactive Media Design program. So that was a 2-year program that I took. I was lucky enough to play basketball while I was there too. But yeah, took that program and exited with sort of the base fundamentals of being able to design and build a website, do photography, videography, animation. Flash was a thing at the time. We did stuff in that too. So all kinds of cool stuff, a really wide array of skills. And out of that program, I actually did an internship at a marketing agency in Ottawa called SEO Plus, and that brought me back into marketing. So from there, I learned digital marketing on the job as I was building websites in my position, and I stayed there for 5 years and moved up in the marketing side of things and became a digital marketer. So now I am a senior manager of digital marketing at Invest Ottawa. We're a economic development agency in Ottawa, not for profit, and I have the privilege of overseeing our ads, our websites, our designs, our analytics, all that. I find it really cool, all that cool stuff. And I also teach at Algonquin College too, which is a fun time. I teach in the public relations program as a part-time professor. My class is called Integrated Marketing Communications. And in that class, we essentially learn digital marketing. So last week we were making Facebook ads in class. Next week we'll be doing Google ads. So really cool to kind of go full circle in a space where I thought I was bound for university and bound to, get a designation, become an accountant, to sort of veer off that path and go towards my passion, being able to find work and enjoy what I do and love what I do every day. So much so that I do consulting on the side too. So I've got freelance clients as well as my job, as well as teaching, which is all super fun and enjoyable. So yeah, that's a bit of the background on my career stuff and pathways.
You're busy.
Busy. Yeah.
You're a busy person.
It's fun.
That's
It's a good time.
awesome. That's really cool, and I think it's really neat that you have experience going to both like university and college, and seeing what those both can offer.
Yeah.
Um, do you mind sharing like a little bit about your identity journey, I guess, as you experienced it at the like even at high school, going to both of those
Yeah,
places?
definitely. I was in a unique position in that I was meeting a lot of people playing women's sports. So in high school, I certainly was not out. I certainly did not look like I do now in high school either, which is no problem, but I'm happy to have gotten where I got. But yeah, meeting people through sport and through university and specifically college, kind of brought me to the point where I was more comfortable with identifying with my identity. I think I was a bit avoidant towards it, but meeting people as part of my community helped me come out. So I came out, I think in my first year of college, I came out. So it wasn't soon after high school. Um, Came out as a lesbian and have been doing that ever since. And certainly playing with pronouns over the years. I always joke that if I was born like 5, 10 years later, I would probably be using different pronouns, but identifying with she, her for now. But I don't know, 5 years from now might be different, which I think that's the beautiful thing about the LGBTQ plus community is that you've got that flexibility to change and explore who you are. And there's an incredible group of people that will support you no matter what.
It's true. It's true. Um, I know I love students these days are just like so educated in the possibilities of things, and I always am learning from them, and I love that. And I should add to the folks that are attending. I am a guidance counselor with the OCDSB in an identity specific role, so I support queer and trans students across high schools in the OCDSB. So I hold both of those identities and work on connecting with students through that identity. Um, can you speak a little bit about like how you found Algonquin kind of as a queer person? Like, did you feel like it was welcoming? Did you have to look hard for those kinds of, community events and stuff like that? Was that even your jam? I guess some people it's on the radar, some people it's not as much.
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't have to look too hard given that I was on the sports team at Algonquin had quite a few queer players on the team. So I found my community somewhat immediately, but there's so much going on at the college, even now as a faculty member. Going in, there's like drag bingo, I think almost monthly there, which is always a really great space to meet people that are in the community. So that certainly didn't find it difficult to meet people and grow my network of queer individuals that I was relating to. But definitely the basketball team made it a lot easier because you roll with the other sports teams and then you just end up meeting everyone. So you're all hanging out.
It's like
Um,
an easy social in, right?
oh, 100%. The rugby team, soccer team, like we're all hanging out, having beers or whatever. We were legal
Yeah.
at the time, so that was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference from when you attended to being on faculty there, like a shift in the campus over time in
Yeah.
sports?
Yeah, I would say I don't see a lot of the sports teams or players now because they're not in my program. So if anyone's into athletics, take the PR program and come talk to me. But I would say just in terms of I see a shift in folks really being authentically themselves and going through
Mhm.
that exploration. Like I've got students that will, change their preferred pronouns or change their names through the semester. Um, and I think the faculty at the college does a really great job at supporting that change, whether it is just a pronoun change or names or anything like that. And even just from, the mental health side too, as a faculty member supporting students as they, are moving through things when they reach out and, either want to chat with me about what they're going through, just to have a, lend an ear type deal. So yeah, I think there's been a shift in the college and even the courses we take as part-time faculty at the beginning of the semester, like where they teach all the teachers on campus how to create inclusive spaces, psychological safety, all that good stuff. So it's a really great space and a really fantastic campus and has definitely morphed over the years.
That's really cool that they do that with y'all,
Yeah,
with like educating the staff and stuff.
yeah.
That's really positive. Cool. Do you have, so I have, yeah, do you have any advice for a student if they're applying, I guess, to a post-secondary school of like things they should consider, I guess, if they have a different identities or like things that they should consider?
Yeah. I think for me, even if I was applying for school right now, the big, and it's such a basic necessity, I'd be looking even just for like gender neutral bathrooms. Like that's a huge
Mhm.
thing for me. Um, like I'm 6'2", and I run into lots of issues out in the world, so that would be something I would look for. Um, but I think too, applying to a school, especially when you're young and finding yourself, keeping yourself rooted into what you love, not necessarily what you think you have to do. And that was something we talked about on the college discussion this morning about making sure that you're following your passion, because you'll find work and you'll find all the logistics that need to come together. You'll find that in things that you love, even if you don't think that there's, a job right outside of school for it. Um, so I would say that if there are clubs or things that you can join on campus, certainly do that. I was lucky that I had the basketball team, and I think, you know, moving on to res and being part of that experience, being part of a sports team or a club really helped me feel at home and feel like I had people in my corner, even though some nights you might be staying up all night to study for an exam or something, just to have someone, a few doors down that you can go visit or some friends that you can text like, oh my gosh, we have basketball practice in 2 hours. I need to study for this test. So finding clubs and things like that, going to the open houses and just seeing what even like the vibes are like. That feels very trendy and current, but I don't know. I like vibes. I'm a vibes
No, I
person,
I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I like read the vibes of a building all the time.
right?
Yeah, those are kind of like really similar pieces of advice, I guess I give students that I'm working with, like just considering, if you're an out or and queer person, or you're looking to go to post-secondary to like have the freedom to express that part of you that maybe you're not able to do in your community for a variety of reasons. I always tell students like consider the city that you're moving to. Are you moving to a really, really tiny town, in a remote area, or do you want to live in a bigger town where, there's more diversity potentially, or, more resources? So thinking about that, like you said, doing a tour of the school can be really beneficial because you get firsthand view of, the facilities that are even there. I know Carleton has an amazing reputation for the 2SLGBTQ plus community. Like there's a lot of amazing supports on that campus. And I think it's a matter of, explicitly looking for those things on your tours and asking those questions, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think too, college was exciting because that was the space where I reinvented myself. That whereas where, when I was leaving high school, I had hair down past where the camera can see. And
Yeah.
it was college that I cut it all off and started exploring with things that made me feel like I was in my own skin, whether that was a look thing or an identity thing, how I was identifying publicly. It was a really great space for me to feel free to be able to do that. Because some people, they'll see you in the hallway, you'll never see them again, right? So
Mhm.
it's not like high school where you go in and everyone knows you. So yeah, it was a fantastic space for that.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few students who have really who've gone to school and like really enjoyed the part of, being a little bit more anonymous,
Yeah, exactly. Even if
right?
you're in your hometown, like both like I grew up in Stittsville, I'm still in Ottawa, and both my schools were in Ottawa, and I still had that freedom and flexibility to explore. And yeah, I look at pictures of when I was in college, I'm like, oh, like that look didn't last long, but it helped me get to where I am now. So it was all part of the journey for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, other things to consider, you kind of mentioned in your talking about being a faculty member, like figuring out who you would speak to, I guess, to change names and pronouns depending on if you're using your birth name or not. Um, how that's done, how easy that is to make happen. Those are all like really valid and important questions to be asking your post-secondary institution. What else did I have on my list? I have a little list, but oh yeah, and if you're applying to residency, right? Like asking those questions about how they pick rooms, what room availability is there? You know, are you able to indicate that you're trans and you'd prefer to be rooming with another person in the community? And a lot of schools have different things to consider when it comes to that. And so, and different processes that they use. So I think there's a lot of value in asking those questions, or, you know, think if it's important to you, you know, making sure that you're asking that.
Yeah. And,
Um,
even reaching out to, if you end up somewhere and you are changing things, reaching out to even just to a teacher, they'll kick off a process. And I think that, at least at Algonquin, that's a beautiful thing with the smaller class sizes and stuff, is that you can reach out to a part-time teacher that's only there a couple hours a week and they'll push ahead and action stuff for you too. It's a really fantastic culture they have there amongst the faculty with the students.
Yeah, okay, that's really good to know. I mean, we're selling both being queer and Algonquin College tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. And the PR program, if anyone's into public
Yeah,
relations.
and post-secondary institution's a great place to go to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you know many folks like from different schools who have different experiences kind of navigating university life, college life, you know,
Yeah.
coming up on different challenges or obstacles maybe we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think one of the first queer people I ever met came from a really small town, and I met her at Carleton, and in my mind, she was like the first gay person I've ever met in my life. And she was kind of the opposite of what I would expect someone coming from a small town. I would expect someone to be a bit more like reserved with their identity, and she was just like so matter of fact. And I think with her, some of the challenges she had was just adapting to the city, which I thought was surprising. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so opposite of what you would expect. You'd be like, oh, are you like nervous about coming out to it? She's like, no, I'm gay. And you're like, okay, yeah, good for you, like work. Um, so that was an interesting and just being away from home. And sometimes people lose their roots too, or they feel like they've lost their roots when they're away from home. So that was something that some of my teammates felt too, if they were moving away, even from like Toronto to Ottawa for school. That was certainly something that came up, wanting to be able to quickly go home and see mom and dad, even though you are exploring yourself and trying to um, figure out who you are, that can still be a space to recharge. So making
Mm-hmm.
sure that you do build that support system, whether it is through a club or friends or who you end up rooming with, even if it's someone that's you've just met. Some of the roommates that I had on res at Carleton were some great friends that really carried me through stuff, and I had met them when we moved in. It was like, hi, I'm Lindsay. Also, I miss home, and you're now my new confidant for the next year.
100%. I lived in residence, and I'm young, I'm older than Lindsay. Be not fooled. But yeah, I'm still friends with people that I met in my first year of residence, and like, you know, you're just randomly thrown together, and here we are, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, don't underestimate, you know, the power of. I actually am good friends with someone I met in line to sign up for intramurals. So like, you
there
know,
you
you just
go.
meet people in the most random ways in those situations, right?
Well, intramurals would be a great way to really get close with people. So no surprise there that you made friends with someone in line.
Yeah, I know. So random. I was also signing up for broomball, which is like a very random sport. Like,
I was
why
gonna say,
was I
was it
signing up
like
for broomball? Anyway,
Ball? Uh,
I know.
was there enough for
Um,
teams for that or?
I don't even think it took off. I think I might have been the only one. I was like, well, okay, whatever. Okay, we have a question in the chat. It's very exciting. Someone
Nice.
also said rest in peace, Flash, to your comment about Flash. So
Yeah.
you would maybe appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, cool. Someone says, do you think it makes sense if you're ace going into residence to ask to room with someone else that's ace?
It's a good question. Um, I would feel like everyone might be different on that one. So I would
Mm,
say, whatever you feel in your gut, roll with that. I think if I think back to where I was in my journey and who I was at the time, I wanted to be with someone kind of the opposite of me, which is what I ended up with. So I would say if you're going to do a lot of learning, a lot of meeting people, so it might be good to have some camaraderie with someone who identifies similarly as you. So definitely no right or wrong answer, I would say for that one. And you'll have like a res fellow on your floor too, Those are always good to befriend. Whoever, they're normally like an older student that lives on the same floor as you. They're always great to befriend because they'll be a good support system too if anything ever happens.
Yes. And they can fine you if you're not being, if they don't like you. So,
Yep.
good person to also know.
Exactly.
Yeah, when it comes to residents, like thinking about, it's you can definitely ask for your own room if you're financially capable of paying for your own single room, but sharing a room, it's always a bit of a wild card with who you're going to end up with. I think they really do their best to ask some pretty important questions on like lifestyle when it comes to like not lifestyle as in like LGBTQ. Let us not mix
Yeah.
those two things up. But like, do you go to bed late? Do you wake up early? Like that kind of stuff. And they try
Yeah.
and pair you with people that are somewhat similar. But I know I've had some students have really positive experiences with being a trans person really worried about entering in a residency and them being really accommodating at the school to find the right mix. So if it's important to you, like Lindsay says, I think it's important to speak up about it. The other thing we didn't really touch on is that a lot of schools will have their own like health services on campus. So if you're someone who is getting gender affirming care currently and then moving to a different city, or you're looking into that kind of stuff, or you just want some wellness, like mental health wellness, like all of those things exist on campus and they can be really important to kind of research out, right? Like you said, Lindsay, you're going to a new place, you're maybe like discovering some things about you, you're trying some things out, it's a lot to process, and you're in a new type of schooling and all this kinds of stuff. It can be really helpful to have someone to talk to when you're going through all those changes. So checking out the facilities that exist and what services exist can be really helpful for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And there's, pricing and benefits to students, but if you're someone who, might be like, I don't want to go through the campus route for that too, like, picking a post-secondary where there is infrastructure around it too, because there are definitely some really isolating campuses, but it doesn't mean it's a
Mhm.
bad place. It's just if you're not comfortable reaching out to your actual school for assistance with things too, making sure that there's resources outside of the campus limits for you as well.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Like, getting, and that's one of those things you get to learn about, I guess, as you build community is like what's actually happening outside of your microcosm of your school, right? Of like if you're in Ottawa, like what are who are the big community partners and who are running events and stuff like that, right? It can be really positive to be expanding a little bit on where you're hanging out. So we have another question, which is kind of along the same line of where do you build slash find community in queer spaces?
Hmm, good question. I think for me, it was showing up to some of those events. So like on campus at Algonquin, going to drag bingo. I think participating even in your frosh weeks or your freshman weeks on your campuses are really good spaces to meet people. Now, they might not necessarily be part of the same community as you, but there's all sorts of intersectionality amongst students, and the one thing you all have in common is that you're all somewhere new. You're all probably a little nervous and excited. Um, so certainly go into it with an open mind, but that first week, the activities that they have, whether it's concerts or um, I think we had a lot of concerts, we had scavenger hunts, all kinds of cool stuff on campus. Even though if you might feel like too cool for school, I would definitely hit those up your first week. Drink the Kool-Aid, I guess, and enjoy it because it only happens once. You're only going to be a freshman once. Um, and again, you're going to find people that have something in common with you. At a minimum, you're all just new at post-secondary. That's where I met a lot of good friends that kept stay with me through the years. And then your classmates too, like the people in your classes. In a lot of cases too, there's some particular classes that are going to be a bit more queer oriented. So if you're in those, nice, awesome. And if you're not, the class sizes, especially at university, are huge, 100, 200 students. And college, you're going to get to know your classmates super well. You'll know, similar to high school classes, you'll know everyone by name by the end of the semester. And there's always going to be someone in the room, at least in my opinion, that you can befriend. I always seem to find one person at least.
Yeah, it's definitely intimidating, right? To go from high school where maybe you've known all the students in your school for 4 years or maybe 10 years or longer. Like, right? Like, I went to high school with students that I went to kindergarten with. And by the time
Mm.
were 17, it was like, okay, gotta go. Like, I gotta go meet some new people. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, right? When you're on campus meeting new people. But like I think Lindsay mentioned before, everyone's in the same situation of being new and trying to figure it out. And so, most people are pretty open to dialoguing. And the best part is like you vibe with that person, you can hang out again. And if you didn't vibe with that person, then you don't really have to see them again, probably. So
Yeah.
there's a really great opportunity to kind of, yeah, to meet different people and find what you really are looking for in like community. I think the example of attending like orientation week, or what it's called, like 100 different things depending on where
Yeah.
you are going to school, um can be really easy to not attend, but it really is the way to like feel more comfortable on campus, maybe meet a few people, and just kind of get your feet on the ground before you start attending classes, because then it's kind of go go go. There's so many events on campus that are constantly going on. And I think, as a older person, went to university, I went to Queens, like, I think it wasn't until my third and fourth year where I like really started to know what was happening and what was like a good time. And by that time you're like, oh man, like why didn't I know about this before,
Yeah.
right? So being open to trying different kind of social events and checking things out can be really beneficial. Yeah, and just listening, right? Like finding queer spaces, like you'll hear on campus so quickly kind of where those spaces are and where what's happening social wise, I guess. Yeah, just a matter of, taking the chance, putting yourself out there, I guess, and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
Bring a friend.
Yeah.
Bring a
Your
friend and
friend.
try something new.
Yeah. And it'll probably be your friend will be like one of the first people you met on campus waiting in line for a room ball.
Oh gosh, I'm telling you. Karen and we still talk.
Karen. Nice.
Karen!
Love it. In my head, the broom ball was comparable to Carleton's Quidditch team. I'm like, those, like, there's not a lot of
Literally.
them, but they're definitely tight, all of those guys.
Oh yeah, Quidditch. I remember when that became a thing. Anyway, we digress. Um yeah. So okay, someone's asking about going to America as a trans person. Are you able to bring your tea with you as you go to your schooling? That is a great question to ask your physician slash health. They would know the regulations on Health Canada. I've had students travel to different parts of the world, and it just depends on the country that you're traveling to and their import laws on the amount and the different medical devices you need to bring with you across the border. So that is a great question to ask your healthcare provider, or I'm sure Google Health Canada might have that answer, or the country that you're traveling to if you look into importing medical things. So I don't have a direct answer for you, but that is how you would figure that out. But it's a great thing to consider, especially if you're going to go abroad. Like, what are the rights of queer and trans students in the country that you're moving to? Something to consider in the daily life of things. Because I've had students do exchanges to different countries and not necessarily consider that part of their identity, because they're just like, I really want to go to this place. And I'm like, yes, cool, but let's also consider your safety,
Yeah.
because that's always our number one when we're having these conversations. Is safety is always the most important thing to consider.
Yeah.
Okay, someone says, oh, here we go, Lindsay, here it comes. For post-secondary school sports, for one separated by gender, if you are on HRT, what team do you play on? If you are AFAB, non-binary on T, then would you be forced to play on a men's team, or do you know what could happen for that? Do you know the regulations around that kind of stuff?
I don't know the regulations. I would say for like intramural teams, if we're talking that type of deal, I would just go I would read the regulations, find the rules, but I would just go with whatever team you're identifying with. Like I played on the women's basketball team. And later in life, more recently, I got into running, and I've always signed up for the non-binary category now that I'm a runner. But I think in university and organized sports, I would have just stayed with what I was comfortable with, which would have been the women's team at that time. But yeah, there's likely some rule books and some evolved stuff that probably didn't exist when I was in school, but it should have for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think a lot of schools are trying to do a lot more inclusive-minded policies when it comes to intramurals and things like that. But I could see if it's a more competitive sport, they may have different regulations depending on the sport and who you're playing against and things like that.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
But I would say like go after, you're only young once, go after it. Advocate for yourself if you're comfortable. Make sure you're feeling safe and secure too, but definitely push ahead because yeah, I play basketball in like a Monday night league now, and I would love to play like I did when I was 18, 19. So enjoy it while you can.
Oh my gosh, right? That's gonna turn into an old queer person's chat about how we used to be fast.
I
But
used to,
basically, yes, this was the similar thing. I played soccer in a like 21 plus league a few years ago, and
yeah,
it was more than a few years ago. But my wife would be like, "It was more than a few years ago." Uh, but I cannot run as fast as a 21-year-old can. Like it was not even a competition. I was like, "See you later, guys. I'll
yeah,
be defense."
yeah. They run circles around me on Monday nights
I
in
know.
basketball. It's not good.
Yeah, basketball's rough for sure.
No.
That's you got to be speedy.
Exactly.
Okay, these are great questions, everyone. Keep them coming because I think we're talking about some good stuff. Anything else you can think of, Lindsay, that we haven't touched on?
Um,
We touched on a lot of stuff. I'm just trying to pull up. Go ahead.
I'm looking at some of the pre-prompt questions too here. I would just say, for any of you folks that are, if you're out or not out or still, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but, let yourself enjoy the experience and let yourself move and flow and evolve. You're certainly not set in stone as to who you are in high school, and the same goes for post-secondary. So just be authentically you, and I think you'll have a great time no matter where you go, what course you take. It's such an exciting, fun time. And yeah, if I could go back and do it all again, I probably would have been more open to experiences and new things. So just to
I
pass that.
agree. I think it's a really great opportunity when there's a lot of fear around leaving high school for some folks, and then other folks are just like ready to be gone, and that's totally fine if you're in either camp or somewhere in between. I think it is a really amazing opportunity for you to have this like fresh start, right? No one knows necessarily who you are or, any of that kind of stuff. And for you to just know that, you get to introduce yourself to people as you feel comfortable and as it evolves over time, it may change. And it really, I think it's a really amazing space and environment to, try those different things and figure out, what's important to you, and what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And so, taking that opportunity to really like go for it, when you're ready. But
Yeah.
it's you're not, it's like you said, you're not going back to high school with the same people the next day. It's like different folks all the time. So there's a lot more freedom to figuring out, what vibes with you and what doesn't vibe with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, to go back to school again, it would be the best.
Right? It would be fun.
Oh, all the things I would study differently.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah. And like I went to school in a program that was sorry. I went to school I went to a big university, I went to Queen's, and my classes were really small, most of them, because I was in a smaller program. So if that's your jam, like you want a smaller program, those things do exist and those classes do exist for sure as you go on. But it's a good way of meeting people too if your program's a bit smaller.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Lindsay also mentioned gender inclusive washrooms and change rooms on campus. Those all exist on campus. So those are things to check out and ask if you're doing tours, like, where are these? Show
Yeah.
them to me, prove it.
Yeah. I
Actually,
do it even.
I was at Algonquin like 2 days yesterday. This week is forever. I was at Algonquin yesterday and I was so impressed with their bathroom situation in the building that I was in. Like, everything was a
Nice.
single stall, door closed thing. I was like, this makes so much sense.
Love it. Well, and
I
like even as an adult, I search for gender neutral bathrooms when I'm traveling anywhere. Like going to get groceries, where's the bathroom that I can use? So it doesn't even apply to school, it applies to life.
I know, it's so exhausting.
It's the worst.
We all appreciate just, these facilities existing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we talked about a lot of things: health and well-being. We talked about social stuff, housing. Yeah, the other thing I would check out is just like school policies around how your name appears on different things. Whether or not you're using an online platform for learning, or different profs are using different um, platforms. I have no other word for that.
Yeah.
For like how they're delivering their course materials and stuff like that. And understanding how your name appears in those different things if you're trans and you use a name that's not your birth name. Because I know that's obviously quite triggering for a lot of folks to see a name that they don't vibe with. And so understanding those processes can be really important, and how to advocate for yourself too, right? Like, I think it's really cool, Lindsay, you mentioned that they do a lot of training with the staff on campus, but not just like, in your high schools, you got teachers who are totally there and teachers who are working towards, their equity lens. And it's the same thing in some of these larger institutions, right? Of these different profs and stuff. So, like, learning what your rights are as a student, how to make these changes, how to make sure that they're being followed is just, more information is more power. And so I think that's definitely something to consider as well.
Yeah. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the campuses have support teams for the schooling software that they're using. So definitely feel free to submit 100 tickets to get your name changed because
100
it's
tickets.
it's worth the effort, it's worth the time.
Yeah. And I would say, like, for the student who asked about like queer spaces, most campuses now have some sort of queer space on campus, where they have like a hangout space. Like, I know Algonquin's got a pretty cool space. So, like, those are things to consider when you're trying to decide where to go, right? If that's something that's important to you. Maybe you're part of the community and you're like, I don't actually care about that existing. Like, cool, that's fine. But if you are someone who's like, I love my GSA at school, it's really important to me, like my whatever your school calls it, the Rainbow Club, I really want something like that on campus, ask those questions when you're applying, or explicitly look for those things when you're, doing your research. And we do our best here to make a decision that makes the most sense for you, right?
Yep. Yeah, your safety in terms of enjoying yourself and having friends and community is just as important as the program you're taking and the education you're going to get.
Yes. Okay, well, I think that's the best way to end it.
There
I
you
like
go.
there's no better, like, you just nailed it.
There we go. Crushed it.
I mean, we got 5 minutes left, but no more questions are pouring in. So unless these folks just want to watch us banter back and forth,
But the good old days.
like the good old days. About the good old days, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, folks, if you have follow-up questions, please let us know. If you're with the OCDSB and you would like for me to come to your school, I would gladly come out and hang out with you and continue these conversations. Um, Someone said, questions to fill the void. Do you have any pets?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I have two pets. I have a cat and a dog.
Oh my
How about you,
gosh.
Jess?
I just got a puppy.
Oh, I'm so
I
happy for you and
know.
so sorry for you at the same
I
time.
know. I know. I've had a puppy before, so I also have three
Oh,
children. So, like, what is the
um,
difference?
yep.
Um, she's a Frenchie,
Oh, cute.
and yeah, I know they're so silly. My wife refers to them as the orchid of the dog world.
You know what? That's accurate. That's accurate.
They are.
I have an orchid and all the flowers just came off, so that just immediately connected.
See, they're like impossible to keep alive, but here we are. Here we are, and I
Yeah.
have one. Anyway, her name's Rosie, and she's 4 months old.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, yeah. What's your dog's name?
Draper.
Ah,
And he's
what a cute
3.
name.
Yeah, he's 3.
What kind?
He is a sheepadoodle, Old English sheepdog and a poodle mix.
That's a new one for me. A sheepadoodle. I've never heard of that being mixed together.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a
Is
sweet
that the
guy.
busiest dog in the world?
He's pretty chill actually. As
Oh.
this other question about pets, I was like, I could recall him, but he's definitely like passed out unconscious somewhere. So
Yeah, we don't have time for that.
exactly. The sun's down at 4. He's got to go to bed. That's it.
I love this. I love everyone who's participating in this chat. It's so great. It's like we've built a little tiny community here and people really want us to talk. Oh, someone wants to know our opinions on Sphinx cats. Are those the hairless ones?
I think so. They're super cute.
They are really cute. My sister-in-law has 2.
Oh, wow.
I have never met them because they live in a different city, but I don't know what it would be like
I think you have
to
to rub
touch one.
like coconut oil on them sometimes to keep their
You
skin
sure
moist,
do.
and that
You
sounds
sure
really
do.
cute.
It's kind of strange. Someone says, this has really gone sideways. Someone says, will this be a recording of this? Unfortunately, there will be for us. I'm just kidding. There is a recording of this. Share wide and far, people. This is being recorded and you will be able to watch it for the next 30 days. So tell all your friends and family that if they want some great info on applying to post-secondary school as a queer or trans person, there's some good little tidbits in here. Also, some information on Sphinx cats and how to care for them.
Yeah. I feel like we started a podcast at the end. It's like episode 1.
Literally, I'm thinking that might be your new side hustle.
Yeah, there we go. Podcasting.
Okay, cute. Well, podcast coming at you from Lindsay and Jess. We're cutting it here, Lindsay. I'm calling it.
Sounds good.
Thank you for coming to our amazing rendition of navigating post-secondary institutions as a queer and trans person, potentially. Google things, ask questions, don't be scared, and, just live your best life, people.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.